visiting Israeli football hooligans on rampage in Amsterdam, provoking Dutch Arabs and instigating a wave of violence. Did officials fail to prevent the rioting? Is their narrative of the unrest biased? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammad Jamjoom. Amsterdam today is tense and divided. The usually peaceful city is struggling to shake off the feeling of unease following a night of violence provoked by fans of the Israeli football club Maccabi Tel Aviv. The visiting supporters tore down and burned Palestinian flags and abused people of Arab descent in the lead-up to their club's Europa League match against local giants Ajax in the Dutch capital. They chanted slogans in support of Israel's war on Gaza and vandalized businesses and vehicles. The angry backlash that followed and the official response to it is raising questions. Should the incidents that lit the fuse have been foreseen and prevented? Has the official response been biased? Does it highlight deep-rooted racism and Islamophobia? We'll tackle these issues with our experts in a moment, but first, this report by Victoria Gatenby.
Amsterdam is in a state of shock. Last Thursday, thousands of fans from Maccabi Tel Aviv football club visited the city from Israel for their team's Europa League game against Ajax. Before the match, they gathered in the city centre. Many were seen ripping down Palestinian flags and chanting racist slogans. Outraged locals, many of Arab descent, confronted the Israeli fans after the match. All protests in the Dutch capital have since been banned, and the mood is still tense, exposing deep-rooted divisions in Dutch society.
I'm sure there's anti-Semitic reasons to the things that happened, but I think a bigger explanation is the war and the genocide that's happening in Palestine.
The government, under the leadership of the far-right Freedom Party, was quick to ask for strong measures against Muslims involved in the violence, including deportations. And authorities in both the Netherlands and Israel labelled the violence anti-Semitic, avoiding giving context that might suggest a different narrative. The head of the Collective Against Islamophobia says this is dangerous language and that the attacks were a response to violence and racist insults by Israeli supporters.
No Jewish citizen in Amsterdam has become a victim. All we see is a witch hunt, polarisation, portraying Muslims as terrorists. What they're really trying to do is normalise what Israel's doing in Palestine and silence all those who protest against it.
The mayor of Amsterdam survived a vote of no confidence on Tuesday during an emergency meeting of the city council. 3/4 of the Netherlands' Jewish population were murdered by the Nazis during the Second World War, and she says she stands by her initial response to the violence.
I can imagine that this could remind people of a pogrom. That's my assessment. We are aware that there have been issues around Maccabi supporters too, but it was a terrible shock among our Jewish friends in Amsterdam, and I can imagine that this could remind people of a Holocaust. I'm not taking that back.
The mayor's report concluded the riots were triggered by a toxic mix of anti-Semitism, football hooliganism and anger over Israel's war on Gaza and its ground offensive in Lebanon. Having identified what they say are the causes, Dutch authorities now face trying to bring tense and divided communities back together. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
The Dutch parliament has discussed the fallout of the football violence in Amsterdam. Steph Vassen has more from The Hague.
Last week's riots in Amsterdam involving Maccabi Tel Aviv football fans and residents of Amsterdam has now quickly developed into a huge political fallout and also tensions in the city and divisions felt in society. Here in Parliament there's a fiery debate asked for by the far-right leader, the leader of the largest party here in the Netherlands, the Freedom Party, Geert Wilders. He asked for this debate and he started off really condemning the violence against Israeli fans, calling it organized Jew hunt, anti-Semitism, and he's also been asking for very strong measures against people from what he now says is the Dutch-Moroccan community who are basically involved in these riots. The police hasn't confirmed any of this, but he now is asking to withdraw even their Dutch passports if they have two passports, if it's proven that they are involved in the violence. So this, according to the opposition, is really adding fuel to the fire, creating even more divisions in society, and they're asking for responsible leadership. But it's very clear here from what's happening today in The Hague that what happened in Amsterdam on Thursday, that this is really adding a debate about immigration, about Islam, and is actually really being used for political means by the far-right government here in the Netherlands. Stepfasen, Al Jazeera, Inside Story.
The violence has exposed rifts in Dutch society that we can explore further with our guests. In The Hague, Mouin Rabbani is a non-resident fellow at the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies in Amsterdam. Jazie Veldhuyzen is an Amsterdam City Council member for the political party De Vonk. And also joining us from The Hague, Yuval Gal is a Jewish community activist who co-founded the anti-Zionist group Erev Rav. Welcome to Inside Story. Thanks so much for being with us today. Jazie, let me start with you today. All the protests in the Dutch capital have been banned. How tense does the mood in Amsterdam remain?
Well, thank you for having me. I would say the situation is quite tense. For example, there will be another demonstration today because the fact that the demonstration ban that originally was only supposed to be last weekend got extended until this Thursday. And also, the mayor yesterday in the debate said that it is possibly going to be extended. So pro-Palestinian protesters, they are angry because the grounds on which this demonstration ban is based, they say, and I also agree with that, is based upon the Zionist frame. That it was actually the people of Amsterdam who initiated the violence, that they did pogroms against Jews, that they were Jew hunting. But I think we will talk more about the context of that later.
Jazie, let me also ask you, from your point of view, what could officials have done to prevent violence and rioting in the first place?
Well, of course, this was the point that we made in the debate yesterday, and this is also what we mentioned before the match on Thursday, that this football club should have never been welcomed in Amsterdam to begin with. That's how you could have prevented the violence. If you wanted to let this club come anyway, you could have also prevented the fans from coming to Amsterdam. And then even in the situation like it happened last Thursday, the fans should have been, or I should say the Maccabi hooligans, they should have been, watched more closely by the police, because the mayor actually appointed some areas in Amsterdam as so-called safety zones, where the police has more rights to make sure everything stays safe. But even within these safety zones, Maccabi hooligans were able to not only sing genocidal chants, but also attack people that look like Arabs, and also throw stones, for example, through the houses that had Palestinian flags. So there's a lot of things that went wrong there.
Yuval, I saw you reacting quite a bit to what Jazie was saying there. It looked like you wanted to jump in, so I'll let you do that.
No, I completely agree with everything Jazie said. I mean, there's the moral reason to kick Israel out of FIFA and UEFA and not allow these kind of games to go on because of the genocide and because of the occupation of Palestine. But also anybody who has any kind of knowledge of Israeli football and the history of this club should have realized, out of concern for Amsterdam, for the Netherlands, that this game can't go on. And we also have seen a few videos where police is seen to not act at all when people are being attacked by Amsterdam hooligans, by Maccabi hooligans. And that also created a lot of anger. I saw one video where a Maccabi hooligan says in Hebrew, "Here is police and they're not doing anything," while his friends are taking off a Palestinian flag off of an house. So yeah, that's definitely part of the story.
Yuval, let me also ask you, from your perspective, what does this incident reveal about what's going on currently in Dutch society, and how deep-rooted are the divisions?
Well, I think, it's clear that a lot of our media and definitely a lot of our politicians rushed really quickly to frame what has happened as anti-Semitic violence. They want to weaponize anti-Semitism against the pro-Palestine movement, but they also want to push this problem away from white Dutch society and into Muslims and Arabs. So I found that really alarming. I also found the reaction of the police to be really scary, really.
Yeah.
Or the inaction of the police.
Mouin, let me get your take on this. I know we've spoken about this a little bit already, but from your vantage point, should the incidents that lit this fuse have been foreseen and prevented? And why were thousands of Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters known and having a reputation for violence and anti-Arab slogans, why should they have been allowed to visit Amsterdam while Israel is waging this war on Gaza?
Well, I think we need to view this entire situation in the broader context of Israeli impunity, which has become a central doctrine of Western governments. I think the first responsibility should be placed on the leadership of the international football federations, FIFA and UEFA, who really have absolutely no excuse not to have dealt with Israel years ago the same way they have more recently and in almost immediate fashion dealt with the Russian Football Association and Russian football clubs, literally within days of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But as both Mr. Veldhuyzen and Mr. Gal was saying, this could have been foreseen if one is even in a cursory way familiar with this particular football club and its supporters, or with the situation in the Netherlands. What we've had now, as we speak, the Dutch parliament is erupting in a festival of hate directed at its own citizens, those of Middle Eastern background, Moroccans in particular. I mean, it's important to understand that the Netherlands is now being ruled by an individual, Geert Wilders, who makes Donald Trump look like a social democrat, and that the prime minister that he has appointed, Dick Schoof, is really the Dutch equivalent of J. Edgar Hoover, and they have gone out of their way to incite and incite and incite against their own citizens. Grandstanding also because there's a war of position being conducted in increasingly chaotic Dutch politics between the right and the left, between the right and the far right, and within the far right. So all this grandstanding is partially about the situation that we've seen in the past week, but it's also about them trying to preserve their position and increase their power vis-a-vis each other. And more broadly, even the leader of the Dutch opposition has framed this entire issue within the context of anti-Semitism. Wilders, according to news reports in Parliament today, even went so far as to say anti-Semitism was invented by Islam. And so quite clearly, it has nothing to do with the situation in Gaza, has nothing to do with the conduct of these racist, genocidal hooligans rampaging through the center of the Dutch capital. But it's really a problem of anti-Semitism. In other words, perpetrators are the victims, and those they attacked are the aggressors.
Jazie, I saw you nodding along to a lot of what Mouin was saying there. I'm going to give you a chance to go ahead and respond.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with both speakers, actually, because I think it's safe to say that Wilders has been waiting for a moment like this to point the finger at migrants. And what you also saw, and that is very interesting to mention here, is that on Friday, Wilders, who of course is a very well-known racist and a Muslim hater, he sat down with the Speaker of the Knesset, and as a reaction to this, right away after it, Dutch government officials, politicians, and media, they rolled out the red carpet for officials from the Israeli regime and also for their Zionist propaganda. So what we see is basically, I think you can describe it in threefold. So what happened last week is being used to scapegoat Muslims in the Netherlands, to push the agenda of the extreme right, which is hateful towards Muslims. It is Islamophobic. Secondly, they're using it also to restrict the right to protest, because since the beginning of the pro-Palestinian student protest, the extreme right has been calling for restrictions on the right to protest. And here in Amsterdam specifically, the student protests have been beaten down severely by the police, which I consider to be a crazy amount of police violence for peaceful protesting students. And then third is what I mentioned before, that they are actually also using this to further the Zionist agenda also within the Dutch government. And it is, I think, highly likely that the publicity of the Dutch government with the genocide against the Palestinian is going to increase.
Yuval, I want to ask you about the fact that your organization, Erev Rav, canceled a Kristallnacht commemoration event at the Jewish Resistance Monument in Amsterdam for security reasons. As I understand it, the way that the police in Amsterdam reacted to the actions of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans is one of the reasons. Could you elaborate as to why this decision was made?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's the main reason that we had to cancel. We had discussions with the police and the local city administration on Wednesday morning when we explained very clearly, together with the platform Stop Racism that co-organized this event with us, we explained very clearly that we are scared of the Maccabi hooligans and why we are scared of them and other Zionist groups. But the police seem to be more interested in us, actually. So they for example, they told us a few times that they are scared that we will damage the monument where we were supposed to hold the ceremony. And when I explained to them, you can't say to Jewish people that we're going to destroy a monument to the Holocaust. That's just very incredibly offensive. They said, well, we are scared of other communities. And they seemed very interested in the question, are we going to talk about Gaza, for example? And of course, we were going to talk about Gaza, because you cannot commemorate the Holocaust without mentioning the genocide currently happening in Palestine. And then we saw the way that they behaved, the impunity that the hooligans were receiving. I think Thursday was the third day that there were violent incidents where police kind of let them happen. So then we had to take the decision, are we going to, can we take responsibility for the behavior of the police in our event? Can we take responsibility for the safety of our members? But also we were also scared that the police is going to use our event as an excuse to attack other people across the city.
Mouin, let me ask you about the fact that the mayor of Amsterdam, Femke Halsema, she faced a lot of criticism for having used the term pogrom to describe attacks on Israeli fans. At a city council meeting on Tuesday, she was asked about why she had used that term, and she said that she wasn't going to take it back. From your perspective, is that kind of language particularly dangerous at a time like this?
Well, of course. And today in Parliament, we had one party leader, Caroline van der Plas, who basically is a representative of agribusiness in the Dutch government, comparing what happened to the 1930s and 1940s. And it's just completely over the top, this grandstanding. With respect to the mayor of Amsterdam, Femke Halsema, she's the former leader of the Green Left Party. And when she was, I mean, she received, more misogynistic and sexist attacks from Wilders and his followers than there has been in the entire history of Islam, I should add. And part of what's going on here is that the right is going after her, and they want to remove her from office and replace her with someone more to their liking. And that also, I think, explains all the attacks against the police force, which, like any other police force in Europe or North America, is institutionally racist. And as Mr. Gal was explaining, was basically defending and protecting rather than suppressing the hooligans as they went about their own little pogrom in Amsterdam against people of Arab appearance. And the problem with the mayor is that rather than responding with reality, rather than defending the residents of her own city against these thugs who had come to terrorize them, she too decided to place this entire incident in the context of anti-Semitism, as if people were not being attacked by these hooligans, and as if the reason that people started attacking these hooligans had nothing to do with what they were doing in the city, but was motivated purely and exclusively by Jew hatred. And that's the general tenor in this entire political class of this country, from the King Willem-Alexander on down to the leader of the opposition and the mayor of Amsterdam. They simply refuse to come out in defense of their own citizens and are placing the blame once again on the victims of these thugs rather than pointing the finger at these hooligans themselves.
Mouin, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to follow up on something you said earlier. Earlier in one of your answers, you said that Parliament was erupting in a festival of hate. There is an inquiry that is underway right now that's looking further into the violence as well as the actions of the Dutch authorities. Do you expect that is something that could actually help ease tensions, or do you foresee that it's going to make things worse?
Look, the problem with Holland now, with the Netherlands, is that it is on the verge of experiencing a situation similar to that we saw in Great Britain over the summer, with the difference that while the government in London basically sent in law enforcement while seeking to downplay the anti-Asian and anti-Muslim elements of what was happening. Here you have a government and prime minister and ministers and coalition partners who are actively, constantly inciting against their own citizens with pure, unadulterated hatred. And so it could end up very much worse than what we saw. As far as this inquiry is concerned, it really depends. Who's going to be in charge? What are their terms of reference? If it speaks the truth, will it lead to even more polarization from Wilders and his supporters, or will it be kind of a cover-up that will once again emphasize this false narrative that what was really happening here was an extension of the Holocaust or of Tsarist pogroms or of anti-Semitism more generally? There's also part of what's going on here is also an attempt to frame what is happening in the Middle East as not the result of what Israel is doing to the Palestinians, but to place it up, to present it also as ultimately nothing more and nothing less than an anti-Semitic campaign against the Jewish people.
Jazie, I saw you. I'm going to let you chime in there, but I also want to ask you, the government under the leadership of the far-right Freedom Party was quick to ask for strong measures against Muslims involved in the violence, including deportations. From your vantage point, where does that take things going forward?
Well, if it's okay, I would like to come back to the first question you asked before about the Mayor Halsema, because I'm in the city council, and I want to say here that our mayor lied in the city council about a Muslim woman that was hit on the head by riot police while she was looking for her child. She collapsed. She ended up on the floor with her blood covered in, or with her face covered in blood. And she has this lie now has been exposed by an independent media maker, Left Laser, but also next to the fact that the mayor doesn't take back using the word pogrom, she didn't come back to saying that the Maccabi hooligans shouldn't have been welcome. She also mentioned that the demonstration ban is possibly going to be extended. She defended the police, and you can sum it up as that she still held on to the one-sided frame that is basically being set out by Zionists and the extreme right-wing propagandists. And what happened as a result of everything that's been going on in Amsterdam, it broke out riots broke out in New West District, and on Monday and yesterday they completely shut off all public transport in New West. So people from that district where the majority of our Muslim community lives had to walk kilometers to get home, and this is exactly what the people that I spoke to were afraid of. Because one of the people from the neighborhood actually told me, and then I quote, that the actions of individuals will lead to collective punishments against the whole Muslim community. And I think that's perfectly describing what happened and what is happening as we speak.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we just have about a minute and a half left. I saw Yuval also looking like he wanted to interject. Yuval, I want to ask you first, how much political fallout might there be in the Netherlands going forward when it comes to all this? And how concerned are you that this is only going to get worse?
Well, I think we can really see that it's going to get worse. I think that the political establishment, and we should also be frank, also very big parts of the media, including public broadcasting, they're going to widen the gap. They are very much interested in keep on broadcasting this frame that Muslims are inherently anti-Semitic. On the ground, activists and people from both communities are actually working to come together and to unite. That's also something I can say. I do agree that the most important point from our perspective should be that the city of Amsterdam and the government of the Netherlands, they have to stop collaborating and promoting the genocide in Palestine. That is the main issue. And Halsema, sometimes she allows demonstrations, sometimes she forbids demonstrations, but she's never our friend because she always refuses to take responsibility for the way the city is behaving in relation to the genocide. She's never introducing any kind of sanctions or divestment or boycott measures.
Yuval, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have run out of time, so we're going to have to leave the conversation there. But thanks so much to all of our guests, Mouin Rabbani, Jazie, Veldhuyzen, and Yuval Gal. And thank you, too, for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Mohammad Jamjoom, and the whole team here, bye for now.